Hello, and welcome to this McKnight Senior Living webinar, Digital that Drives Results, Scaling Your Sales and Marketing Across Multiple Communities. I'm Lois Bowers, editor of McKnight Senior Living, and I'll be the moderator. If your company is like many others in senior living, you've experienced lower occupancy and encountered changing attitudes about senior living during the pandemic, and those present challenges for the near future. Today we're going to hear about tactics that senior living operators can use to maximize their online visibility, drive higher conversions, and improve the experience for prospective residents and their families. We'll hear from our speakers in a moment, but first we have some housekeeping matters to take care of. First, today's slides are available for download. Just click on the Handouts tab on the left side of your screen to find a PDF of the slides to print out. Next, if you are having any audio problems with this broadcast, please first check the volume control on your device. This is the most common cause of hearing issues. The sound should be coming from your computer speakers. Also, we will have time for questions and answers near the end of today's presentation. If you have any questions about the information presented, please feel free to send them directly to us at any time during this hour by clicking on the Questions and Answers tab on the left. Questions that we don't get to in real time will be answered afterwards. This educational offering has been reviewed by the National Continuing Education Review Service of the National Association of Long-Term Care Administrator Boards and has been approved for 1 clock hour. You must stay tuned to this event in its entirety during the original broadcast to receive a certificate. And each attendee must sign in and listen on a separate computer. Attendees can track CE requirements through the Course Completion Tracker, which is accessed through the last icon in the area below the Open Webinar panel. Once you have achieved 50 viewing minutes, a View Certificate button will display, and the required viewing duration will have a green checkbox. You can then view and save your certificate. A copy also will be mailed to you afterwards. Today's program is made possible by support from Reputation.com. After this webinar, you can visit the company website at Reputation.com. Finally, this session will be archived and available on demand shortly after this live broadcast. You can access it again, or others can experience it for the first time by visiting the registration page to enter the studio. The URL is mcknights.seniorliving.com/030921webinar. And now I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Chris Harper is Vice President of Communications at the Arbor Company, a management firm of more than 40 independent living, assisted living, and dementia care communities in 11 states. In his role, Chris is responsible for Arbor's branding and marketing strategy, public relations, media relations, internal communication, and crisis communication. Mary Kate Spires is marketing consultant for the Arbor Company. She helps clients set realistic goals, measure them, and hit them, pivoting when necessary to optimize what's working and abandon what isn't. Annie Harmon is Head of Strategic Consulting, Healthcare, and Life Sciences at Reputation.com. There, she provides strategic consulting and data-driven insights to try to maximize value, drive acquisition, and improve retention for healthcare brands and senior living communities. You can read more about our speakers by clicking on their biographies provided as part of this event. They have a lot of great information to share with you today, so let me now turn the microphone over to them so they can get started. Annie, Chris, and Mary Kate, take it away.
Thank you so much. So I'm Annie Harmon, and I wanted to start off by just setting the context of what we're going to be covering today and provide you a little bit of background on where we are as an industry when it comes to senior living. So we'll start by reviewing a few trends. Some of this will be familiar, some of it may be interesting or new to you. I'm going to provide a little bit of context for what is the complete consumer journey for senior living and how can you optimize your community's online presence. Then we're going to shift to the Arbor Company, who's going to share with you how they are managing their brand at scale. They've built effective workflows, and they're using technology to create a more efficient marketing organization. So I'm going to start by introducing a couple of the trends that we're seeing in senior living. First of all, seniors expect more from their experience beyond the clinical experience. They're looking for an experience that is positive 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's the only industry where that is the case. This drives consumer choice, and if you look at what's important to consumers, they are looking for ratings and reviews. 85% of consumers trust online reviews as much as a recommendation from a friend or family member. It shows just how important those ratings and reviews are. Next, unfortunately, occupancy is down. We've seen that occupancy at senior living, independent living, and assisted living communities is at its all-time low of almost 80% in Q4 of 2020. And half of consumers surveyed said that they do not trust the safety at senior care today. That's really unfortunate, and it can be discouraging, but we're going to share some ways that you can help to combat some of that perception. And then finally, caregiver burnout has always been a concern, but COVID fatigue has really started to take a toll on the recruitment and retention within senior living communities. And we're seeing that 18% of the skilled nursing facilities have reported a nursing shortage in 2020, which is an increase this year. So how can we fix this? Well, I'm going to start by giving you a framework for how you need to be bringing together sales and marketing as one function and one experience for the consumer. It all starts by thinking about reputation and experience management as a complete program. And that means bringing together some of these concepts that have traditionally been siloed to either sales or experience and taking them together to complement and empower each other's business objectives. With sales and marketing looking to increase visibility, CX is really driving access to your brand. And once consumers have accessed your care, you can start to collect and highlight feedback from satisfied residents and their family members. This is going to serve to increase future conversions. And then the third thing that you're doing is pulling all of that feedback into a single place so that you can understand your brand sentiment. How do people feel about you? What are the areas that you need to look at operationally in order to improve the overall experience? As the line between sales and marketing and consumer experience continues to blur, we're seeing that senior living brands are finding that there are too many feedback sources siloed off from one another. And so you really need to look at a way to bring all of this data into a single hub, be able to analyze it, and look at that entire journey. So next, I want to talk about what that journey actually looks like for consumers. How are they searching for your care, and how are they accessing it? More and more, this begins online. People are going to be searching for care. Typically, they're searching for care for a loved one. They will discover your locations. In this example, you can see that the Arbor Terrace Fulton location is maximizing their visibility by having complete information, and they've improved their SEO by including really nice, robust photography. They are responding to reviews, which is going to lead to higher visibility on Google in their rankings. And then finally, the third piece of this journey is not just have they found you, have they chosen you, but then how can you improve on an ongoing basis? And that's where things like surveys and review requesting, that comes into play. And in this example, we're just showing an example of a survey that you could do if you wanted to collect feedback after someone moves in. This would be a post-move-in survey. We also see clients that are doing this at regular intervals. Are there trigger points that are common where you see the most issues? Do you need to be asking for feedback within the first 48 hours or the first 30 days or both? Are there compelling events where you want to make sure that you are analyzing the feedback so that you are flagging any issues before they result in attrition? In order to look at this whole experience, it's really important to start looking at your entire technology stack, or you may have heard this called a marketing technology stack or a MarTech stack. And so one of the things I wanted to do in this webinar is share with you an example tech stack for the way that you might be thinking about your senior living consumer experience. And I want to point out that this is illustration only. These brands are just examples of what some of our customers are using today. You may have other tools that you're using for this, and all of those tools are really valuable, but this is for illustration only. So the idea behind a document like this would be that you create a matrix where you plot out all of the points in the consumer journey for your particular senior living brand. Maybe something like a location directory isn't as critical to that search as the landing pages are. Or maybe you have an occupancy management tool, but not a CRM. You need to make this work for you, but the idea would be that you build those columns as tools that support each of the steps in the journey, whether it's improving your visibility online, increasing the likelihood that someone is going to select you and choose you for their parent or loved one, and then improving the experience. So how do you operationalize any feedback that you have? How do you collect surveys? How do you build workflows to drive operational improvements when someone has a problem? And the idea behind this is once you have all of those points laid out, you need to start listing out all of the technology that you're currently using. So if you're using AdWords on Google or Google Analytics, or you have a content management system for your website, whatever tools you are currently using and are invested in, assuming you've spent a lot of money building out technology platforms within your organization, you want to start then listing where in that journey is there a potential touch point? Are we using too many tools? Are we duplicating our efforts? Do we have tools that could create a seamless journey, but they're not integrated with each other? How can we start sharing data between the platforms? Are there platforms where they could do 5 things for us, but we're only using it for one thing, and then we're paying for 4 other tools? So you start to look at this and understand what a robust technology stack could be and how to make it the most effective and the most efficient for you. And this is something we work with a lot of clients on, and it's amazing to see where they can get cost savings. They can start to improve the analysis of the information that they have internally because they've started to break down silos of where data exists within the organization. And so this can be a really valuable exercise to go through. So with that in mind, I think this is a great transition over to our friends at the Arbor Company. I just want to highlight, really quickly, give them some kudos because I've been very impressed speaking with that team about their technology stack, and not just their tech stack, but how they are using it. This is all about developing processes and then making sure that the people understand how to use that technology and not be beholden to the technology or limited by the technology, but to actually have the operation you want that is enhanced by the technology. And too often we end up beholden to the tools that we have that don't work the way they should, and we waste a lot of time. But the Arbor Company, Mary Kate and Chris, they have created some really great processes to support their people using technology. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Mary Kate and Chris, and I'll let you two take it away to share more with the group.
Thanks, Annie. Well, this is Chris, and yeah, that is a good transition. And I haven't really thought about what you just said, Annie, in terms of the technology and the way we've rolled it out. But I guess it is interesting. We haven't really been afraid of trying new technologies in the marketing space. And as our company has grown, the number of communities has grown and everything, that has enabled us to have a little bit more flexibility in trying new things. But yeah, it's sort of been an interesting journey. So let's talk a little bit about the Arbor Company. I know we had a question about that. So for the person who asked that question, this slide is just for you. So we are a third-party operator of senior living communities. So we don't own any of the communities that we operate. We operate them on behalf of various investor groups who own them. That's the model that we follow. We have been around for a little over 30 years now, always in senior living and always only in senior living in that 30-year time frame. We currently operate 43 communities in 11 states, and they go across 12 brands. The Arbor Company is one of those brands. That's sort of what we call our corporate entity. And then we have various different names for the communities and logos and so forth. All of our communities are rentals, mostly private pay. And then we operate a mix of independent living, assisted living, and dementia care. So no buy-in communities, anything like that. So that's kind of a look at the Arbor Company. I have been with the company for 7 years, and in that time, it's been really interesting to see how the company has grown, and I think how the industry has grown. Just the buyer is now much more sophisticated. They are searching online much more than they did even just a few years ago, and I think that the pandemic has actually exacerbated that even more. It's sped up the need that people have to do their searching online. There was a period, I'm sure for all of you listening in communities as well, and maybe in some cases it's still this way, but there was at least a period for us when we didn't have any tours in the building. We of course didn't have visits coming in the building. No one was really coming in and out unless they were authorized to do that. And that sort of forced a shift. And so I think while the industry was moving toward having more, a greater need for the consumer shopping online, this pandemic just pushed us that far forward. And, to me, I think that's one of the good things that is able to come from the tragedy of a pandemic like this, is that it sort of forces our hand on some things to have us, progress that far forward. But as far as our goals for marketing, I imagine that they're similar for a lot of other companies out there. But for us, we want to improve online visibility. We want to make sure that people can find us when they're searching for us, certainly when they're searching for us by name. But we also want to make sure they can find us when they don't know what they're searching for. So perhaps that is they're searching for senior living in whatever market, or assisted living in the market, or whatever they're happen to looking for there. Or we want them to find us when they don't even know that they need senior living yet. And that's been a focus that we've had for the last several years as we have gone down the inbound marketing route of creating online content between blog posts and ebooks and calculators and tools and all of that stuff, so that we can capture search traffic for people prior to them even searching for senior living. And we've been pleased with the results of that work. The second one there is empowering our regional and local teams with marketing at scale. So we talked about how we have more than 40 communities now. And one of the things that we think makes our community, our company very successful, and sort of the culture of our company, is that we do empower our local teams, our local communities, with a lot, maybe more than what similar companies our size might do. We give them the ability to, market their communities, and what we try to do is give them the tools to be able to do that in a what I would call, from a corporate marketing standpoint, safe way. Because as the corporate brand manager, I want to make sure people are using our logos and colors and messaging and everything appropriately. And so that is a big goal for us, is to walk the line of how do we control things from a branding perspective and a quality perspective, and also allow the local teams to feel empowered to do their marketing. And that flows into other areas of our company as well, other departments and things. That's just sort of kind of the way we look at things. And I think our size gives us the ability to do some of that. So we can talk about that as we look at some of the tools that we have. And then, of course, understanding those KPIs as we look at future improvement. So that could be future improvements to the operation. In our sense, from a marketing perspective, we're looking at just making our marketing better. Did that campaign that we ran, did it succeed? Yes or no? And a successful campaign to me is, of course, you want it to be one that gets you more leads and you want it to work, but really success, I think, can be defined as a campaign that you do where you get good data from. Because even if the data isn't what you wanted it to be, success from monetary or number of leads or whatever, if you have good data, now you're smarter about being able to make decisions. And so we'll get into some of our data points and things later as Mary Kate talks. She's much more in tune to that than perhaps I have. But all of these three goals together ultimately go to getting more leads. I mean, we want to, as a marketing organization, we want to fill the pipeline for our sales folks out in the communities. So, their job is to talk to the leads. Their job is to talk to the potential residents and the families, and we want to make sure that they have enough people to talk to so that they're filling those apartments. No one is going to read a brochure and give you a deposit to move into your community, but hopefully what we can do is get them to take that next step, which is to raise their hand and say, yes, I would like more information about your community, or please, talk to me and tell me more about your community. So as we look at these goals, something that we've wrestled with over time is this idea of in-house work versus agency work at the corporate marketing level as we think about it. For us, we take a hybrid approach. As you see there, combining people, process, and technology. We do not have a large marketing team. It's for the longest time it was just me. We do have a regional vice president team of sales and marketing VPs, and they are primarily responsible for the sales leadership of the communities in their portfolios, and they are responsible for leading the marketing efforts for those communities. But the way we look at it is, the work that I do and Mary Kate does is more from the global marketing strategy perspective. So we support them in their sales and marketing efforts. We control any of the global marketing that we do online or with ads and things, and then support them at the local community level. So it's a nice hybrid approach from that way. But as far as our teams are concerned, we have outsourced for as long as I've been here. We've sort of transitioned from me doing it all at the beginning, and now we have a sort of a host of outside agencies that we work with. The biggest is we do use a digital marketing agency that is responsible for our website development. We use them for our inbound content marketing to produce that for us, to build those workflows. We use HubSpot, by the way. That's what our website is built on, and as our marketing automation platform. So they handle all of that for us. We use an agency that manages our Google ads. and an agency that manages our some of our Facebook posting. And so it's kind of a, oh, and then I guess we have, well, now we've got a media relations agency, and we've got what was one person, but she's sort of grown herself into a mini agency to help us with some of our PR and writing and things. And we've got an outsourced graphic designer. So that kind of makes up what we sort of collectively call our communication team. And on the next slide here, we'll talk about how we communicate. But that's kind of been our approach. The nature of our business, it makes sense for us to use agencies instead of building a robust in-house team. But it brings challenges. So Mary Kate, I was wondering if you could take it away and talk about the workflows that we have in place.
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. This is Mary Kate Spires. So throughout the past few years, we have tried and failed and found success with lots of different types of workflows to really find ways to support the communities. So what you're looking at on this slide here is actually Teamwork Desk, which is a ticketing system. I'm sure many of you can relate that when your email is overwhelming, it can be a lot. And so we created a communication at arborcompany.com email, and all of those requests come to this ticket management system. And we actually have a team who responds, monitors, answers any questions, starts any projects. So this is where a lot of our projects for communities really start. And one of the things that we've been working on here is making sure that we're not just fulfilling requests as they come in, also providing strategic support and really helping the communities think through what's going to be the best use of their time and marketing spend. So that, and another thing with the ticket management is it really helps us respond as quickly as possible. We consider our communities our clients, and so we want to make sure that we're supporting them in every way we possibly can, and as fast as we can. We want to get them really good work in an easy way so they don't feel like they need to try to do it themselves. Chris, do you have anything else to add on our ticket management?
Did you say what platform we use for that? I'm sure some people would want to know.
Yeah, so that is Teamwork Desk, and there is a big internal debate between Chris and I on all of the different tools that we use. We like to argue, which breeds some good competition. We have settled on Teamwork Desk for now because it does integrate with Teamwork Projects, which is a project management system. So what will typically happen for us is a ticket will come in, we'll respond, get the information that we need, and then we'll connect that ticket to the project in Teamwork Projects, work with the rest of the team to get things written, designed, and then move back here again to respond back to the user. So it keeps everything nice and organized and in one ecosystem.
Yeah, it is fantastic for that. And I would say as a takeaway, regardless of the size of your company, if you've got multiple people working in a marketing services organization or department or whatever, having some kind of shared mailbox like that so that the people, your clients, the people out in the communities know it's just this one email address I can send everything to, and then you can have multiple people working out of that. That's truly helpful. Even if you don't use a ticketing system like this, we kind of landed on this by default because we were already using Teamwork Projects, and we joke that we like to argue. We see shiny things and we want to try them out. We did spend some time trying a different system that is made specifically for marketing, a project management system. And we did that for a year, spent a bunch of money on it, and then it just didn't really click for us. And so we moved back to Teamwork because it was a tool that we knew. But I think that's a good example that Annie brought up at the beginning of just, we're trying things. We want to try different technologies to support our workflows to make sure. And I would say that, at least for us, a technology that supports our workflow, like something like Teamwork Desk, is every bit as important as a technology that supports the actual marketing functions, such as, a Reputation.com or such as HubSpot or, Google My Business, things like that.
Absolutely. So moving on to kind of our next big technology and challenge that we came across was Facebook. Facebook for us has always been something that we feel like it is an amazing marketing tool and tactic, but we've never really felt like we could crack it, as I like to say. I know Chris has been trying to get everything, get people posting on Facebook for as long as he's been at Arbor. I have been as well. And because of COVID, we actually had to implement the Reputation.com social platform for all of our communities. So we used to allow communities to post on their own Facebook page, which you can imagine gets a little tough to manage, making sure everyone has the right access or is removed from access. And so when we moved to Reputation.com, we added all of our community users in here, and we added into the social suite, which allows them to post to Facebook, Instagram, and Google My Business whenever they want. And my favorite part is the approval workflow. And we really instituted this during COVID because we wanted to make sure that everything looked exactly how it should look. And in the beginning, I was approving all of those posts, which is super fun. It's also a really nice way to clean up grammar if you ever need to. But as we've evolved, we have actually started using another company to help us, another agency like Chris talked about, and they are using Reputation.com to approve those posts from the communities, but then also supplement those posts with more strategic Facebook postings to try to drive more awareness and traffic to our website. And so we've been really happy with the ability that Reputation.com gives us to, like I said, approve those posts, and also the shared content calendar helps you remember what things are scheduled on what days, which is always good.
Absolutely. It helps us to make sure that, while it's not bad to post, a bunch of things on the same day, you don't want to post everything on Friday and then, go silent for the rest of the week. So it gives you this visual look and some tools to help you prevent posting too much stuff at the same time and spread it out a little bit. And I would say just as a takeaway for folks here, if you operate multiple locations, multiple communities, at a minimum, and if you've got Facebook pages for those, at a minimum, make sure that you are signed in with the Facebook Business Manager and you have those pages all captured in that as locations under your business. That, as far as I know, is free, and it's a much easier way to manage things. And for the longest time, that's how we did it. You can manage access, for example, to people to be able to post to those pages or control the pages all from one central place, as opposed to having to go to individual pages. And you used to have to friend people on Facebook to be able to do this. I mean, it just makes it so much easier. And then, the next step up from that is to have a tool like Reputation.com to be able to bring that in. One of the issues that I have had with Facebook in the past, and I don't know if the Business Manager has gotten better at that, but there was never really a central inbox of comments and things like that. And so tools like Reputation.com enable you to have that kind of in one central platform, and then control people's access through groups and things like that. Just makes it a little bit easier. Prior to us using Reputation, and one of the reasons that we moved to Reputation was because we had it was a pretty slick platform to manage Facebook and social media. We had another platform that we used to kind of monitor the comments on social media. We had another platform to help us manage reviews and tracking all of that. And then another platform to help us manage listings, like in Google listings and Foursquare listings and all of these, places where you have to manage that schema everywhere. And so Reputation.com helped us to kind of consolidate all of that down into one tool, which was a huge win because it's just, fewer things to log into. So, but we've been happy with that ability, and especially the social media side of it.
Definitely.
Mary Kate, we want to slide.
Yes, my most recent project, the Arborize It store. And so we've finally leaned in to communities asking us to arborize things, which just means to make it pretty in our brand. And so we used to have another store for this. We just recently launched the new store called Arborize It. And this is really a store where community users can go in and create their own content on brand. So you can see from the screenshot, it's a little blurry, but there's flyers available in there. This is where they order business cards. We even have some things for reviews, invitations. There's a lot of collateral in here that's super helpful. And this really helps the communities that are on a little bit of tighter budgets, that don't have the marketing spend to redesign a flyer every single time, and they don't need to. We're able to see what flyers work and what people respond to the best, and then have that available for everyone. So the store, Chris mentioned, we have 12 different brands, and it will even pull in the different brands. So we're always keeping that exactly how we want it to look, which really helps with peace of mind from our end. But then, of course, from a professionalism standpoint, everything looks the same. And we actually recently redesigned all of our websites and all of our marketing collateral to match. So we have a really nice user experience from that standpoint as well. And then I was joking this morning that this might be the crowning achievement of the communication team this year. It's still early, so maybe not. But we started creating a Arbor Lookbook, which really is just kind of a magazine that we put in a flipbook software. And it has the quarter 2 ad choices that we recommend based on the season and based on what we've seen work in other markets. We choose a best practice every quarter. So this one was generating reviews, which we know are so important for that online visibility like Chris talked about. And we also review the tools that the communities have access to. So our CRM software, anything that's new in Arborize It, really just any best practices to, like we said, empower the communities. So we want to give them good ideas, but we also want to give them options so that they're doing what they feel is right for their market. Chris, any other thoughts on Arborize It?
No, I mean, it's been a labor of love for Mary Kate to build this out, especially during a pandemic when we're working on all this other stuff. But we just felt that it was time to move on to something that kind of gave us some flexibility. And, these, you can find a lot of different platforms and things for these out there. And it's been helpful. It's helpful to have a place that people can go to find what they need and to make some things themselves. And when they get a little bit of authorship into it, they tend to be okay with some of the brand controls that you have in place.
Definitely. So this here is a screenshot of our new CRM tool. The tool that we use has a knowledge base, which I love so much. And this allows us to load, again, this is another labor of love. I have a lot of them. This allows us to load all of the marketing materials into the knowledge base, and we can make them available to the communities to attach them to emails, which has become increasingly important with the pandemic and going virtual instead of printing things. And it also is a place for all of our corporate content to live for the communities to share from a sales standpoint. So we talked a lot about, content and digital a little bit in the beginning, and we have done a great job from a marketing standpoint of making that content available to leads and marketing qualified leads. But once someone reaches out to a community, we usually stop touching them because that's when they're in the sales process, they're talking to a sales counselor. But that content is still extremely valuable depending on what the person's needs are and questions. And so we've really made a concerted effort in the past few months to make that content available to the community so they can use in their process with helping them with sales enablement. And we've even started duplicating out those ebooks and guides and branding them for the community. We're taking our content that we do from a global standpoint, but then by duplicating it and rebranding it, we're still treating those communities as their own businesses instead of it's just the Arbor Company, which really, again, empowers the communities, but also helps from a brand awareness standpoint of the community instead of the Arbor Company.
Yeah, if you've gone to any marketing conferences or that are not senior living specific, there's a speaker that gets around to a lot of them named Marcus Sheridan, Sales Lion he's called, and he's kind of a larger than life personality. But one of the lines that he has that I love is that the goal of marketing is to make the salesperson look like a genius. And I think this really plays to that here, where we are able to put in tools that the senior care counselors, we call them the on-site salespeople in our communities, can use created, and they're able to respond to someone quickly. So if the person maybe it's discovered that they're a veteran and they need some information about veterans benefits, we can very easily give them branded collateral, and it's the correct collateral. And if we've updated the collateral recently, they have the most recent one, and it's all right there in the database. We did have a question, by the way, if each Arbor community has on-site marketers. I guess it depends if how you define the word marketer. We do have on-site salespeople. We call them senior care counselors or senior living counselors, depending on the community. And so the three term would be that they're the marketing director, but typically their major responsibility is on sales for the community, and then we support them with marketing. But it's a joint effort. But like I said, we do give the communities a lot of autonomy in how they're executing certain things. All right, Mary Kate, you want to talk about our empowering the local teams?
Yes, this is one of my, it's probably my favorite one. So as we continue to expand our communication team, we have really focused on empowering those local teams. We have a great partnership with Heart Legacy to create videos, but as you can imagine, just like Facebook, it's only as good as the content that we capture, and it's much more powerful on a local level than it is at a corporate level. And so recently we've really been trying to brainstorm ways to help the teams create the best content they can. So for example, this graphic here we created, I'm convinced that people pay more attention to things when they look pretty. We have launched a contest for the month of March on who comes up with the most creative video. A few weeks ago, we hosted a brainstorming session around coming up with videos and content. That goes into that lookbook too, especially. Like I said earlier, I think one of the biggest things with empowering teams is giving them options so they don't feel restricted. But with the options, then they're still making the strategic decisions that are on brand that we feel good about and can support them with. And it also saves time and resources by using the things that work versus trying to reinvent the wheel every time.
So it's kind of skipping here, Mary Kate, to the results. Do you want to talk about any of these numbers we have on the screen?
Sure. So I am a data fiend. I love looking at the numbers. I've been really, really happy with our numbers, even as we've gone through COVID, and Reputation.com was great enough to help me pull these results. So in 2020 compared to 2019, our average star rating went from a 4.4 to a 4.6, which I am the biggest fan of Google reviews. It helps so much in that online visibility and just the trust factor. Our reputation score, which is a really cool tool that helps you kind of understand all of the different things that go into reputation. And I love that we can compare by industry. Our reputation score is up to a 716, which is above industry average right now. And then we've had a 91% review response rate, which is up 14%. And this is really thanks to Reputation.com. They've helped us put processes in place to respond to these reviews in a timely manner and make sure we're responding to as many as possible, which has been really great from a feedback perspective as well as a search engine perspective. And then with COVID and our new agency, we have been able to increase the number of social media posts in 2021 by 52%, and an 18% increase in views of the Arbor Company online listings in 2021, which is fantastic. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase before that Google My Business is now the window shopping of the internet. You can actually have non-click conversions, so we definitely want to make sure we're showing up for all of those listings as much as we can.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems that we might be getting close to cracking that Facebook nut. A little bit about COVID communications, and then I think we can probably break into some of the questions that you all have been putting into the questions box here. Of course, COVID has sort of been the name of the game for the past year now. And here's just a kind of a quick list of some things that we did as far as communications are concerned, and some of the different tools that we use. So we did use Google My Business. Google launched the ability to add some COVID information, and we made sure to use that. It was very easy to update that using Reputation.com's tool, so we could do that en masse across multiple communities. We did create a COVID-specific page on our website, and put that, like, so many companies have done this. I mean, there's like a little bar at the top that takes you to that. We already had some good protocols in place due to some other crises. For us, that's mostly hurricanes. The majority of our communities lie in an area that would be somehow impacted by a hurricane and have been. In the past several years, we've had to evacuate communities, we've had flooded communities, things along those lines. And we really sort of stepped up our game with Hurricane Harvey, which hit the Houston area in 2017, maybe 2018. And that, sort of redefined how we do crisis communication with our families. And we really just kind of picked that back up with COVID, but just on a larger scale. So no longer were we talking about a hurricane and its impact to one building or maybe a little cluster of buildings. We were talking about it everywhere. And so it's using tools like our text messaging tools, email tools, and the communities are empowered to do that too. So we have a tool in place that enables the executive directors in communities to send out messages. We've given them templates. We've given them tools like that. So it's been an all hands effort. And then on the marketing side, we have still also done some infographics. We've done some ads related to when vaccines were first available, and that was very new. Just hard to imagine just a couple of months ago. Social posts and things like that. So we try to kind of run the full gamut and have COVID as it's a part of all of the discussions that we're taking.
So I just want to thank the two of you. I after listening to you, I had when we have been talking about what to cover today, there's some key takeaways here, and it sounds like you've done a really good job of balancing the communities, and the team's needs with your overall corporate structure, so that there's some balance between both. And then creating those workflows so that you can save time and make the marketing stronger for your teams. And then you've made really good use of technology to scale your efforts. And so I just wanted to, if we could sum everything up into one slide, I think these would be the 3 learnings. Anything else that that you two want to add before we open it up for Q&A?
I think it goes back to, just being willing to try different things, and understanding that a workflow tool or a tool to make your life easier can be just as valuable as the other tools out there. I'm an inherently lazy person, I say, and anything that's going to make my life easier, I love, even if it creates more work for me in the beginning, because I know that there's going to be long-term payoff. But that enables me to then use my brain for other things, for strategy and for design and for, things that are probably going to move the needle a little bit better than, say, managing the user access to a Facebook page, which is not really something that's going to get us movement in a community.
That's a great point. So I'm just going to quickly go through, because I know we've got lots of questions that have already been posted. We've got a couple resources available. There's an ebook. I've also just posted to the reputation.com blog last week on some senior living trends that if anyone's interested, feel free to check that out on reputation.com. And now some Q&A. Before we open it up for the overall Q&A, there was one question I think would be really helpful to the whole group, and that's the question around communities going rogue with their own materials. Not everyone has the nice Arborize It system that you have, but when they have templates, how can they make sure that people are using them? And how did you manage that change internally to get people to use those rather than creating their own materials that were off-brand?
That is hard. It is something that I have dealt with my entire career, basically, even before working at Arbor and in senior living. And people are looking for the easiest way. If you think, go with me for a second on this analogy, but if you think back to maybe the early 2000s, you could either get your music on a CD or you could download it from Napster or something like that. And, people were pirating music left and right because it was pretty easy to do. But then Apple stepped up and they created the, Apple Music Store, and then eventually into the streaming world. And all of a sudden it became pretty easy to stream your music. I mean, now you can't even imagine buying a CD, right? It became pretty easy to stream your music for $9.99 a month. And that was the easier solution. And people were willing to pay for that, even though it was, they had to pay for it, but it was still easier. And so I think that applies here is we want to give them an easy way to feel like they're doing some customization on their own. You can do that. I mean, again, I mentioned earlier in my career, where I worked, we used to do it with PowerPoint. You can change, PowerPoint template you think of as being this sort of square slide. You can actually change the size of a page in PowerPoint to be 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 8.5, whichever if you want it. And that's kind of cool because you can have your designer design the flyer in a way, in Photoshop or Illustrator, InDesign, whatever, and then import that as an image as like the background into a PowerPoint slide, and then draw little text boxes where you want people to be able to edit. Now, it's not going to stop them from adding in images or, building their own word art or anything like that, but you've given them sort of a clean path to be able to do a quick edit. You can do it in Adobe Acrobat too with text boxes, but you get a little bit more flexibility with the PowerPoint thing. But it's tough. I mean, that's one way to do it. We've got the Arborize It store. There are stores like that. I would encourage you to talk to your printer. If you have a commercial printing press, usually they have some type of technology that enables you to have like an online brand store. They all kind of call it different things, but sometimes they call it a storefront. In our case, I know someone asked about what type of software that was. The solution we went with is called OnTrack Workflow, and it's a company that's actually owned by a print shop. We don't use them for printing, actually. They sell it as a software as a service, and that enabled us to use the printer that we preferred. So yeah, tools like that. And then also, don't let people use Publisher. Microsoft Publisher is horrible.
I love that add-on about Publisher. I have a policy against being critical of any technology platforms whenever I'm talking to any potential customer, but I will allow it for Publisher.
Yeah, there you go.
So there was another resource I wanted to recommend. We're getting so many questions around specific technologies. You know, what are you using for this? What is your digital asset manager? What is your fulfillment, whatever? I wanted to recommend a website, and I wish I had thought to include it in the links, but it's a super easy one to remember. So for anyone who is looking for recommendations on marketing software, CRM software, reputation management, any kind of software that you would need for marketing and sales, or even the operations of your communities, there's a website for business software and software services analysis and reviews. And companies can't make themselves appear better on it. It's all based on reviews, user reviews, so people who have used the software and have something to say about it. That website is called G2. It's just the letter G and then the number 2, g2.com. And I highly recommend checking out G2 if there are things that you need solutions for and you don't know where to start. You can look at what other customers of those softwares have said about them. I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, that's a good resource. But I mean, I know we've got several questions in here. I'm happy to list
go
out
for it.
some of the things. Of course, we use reputation.com.
Hour.
Oh yeah.
So,
Okay.
So I think we have time for one question. Let me put that to you guys, and then we'll wrap up with some ending information. If somebody's operation is mainly manual today, what's the best place they should start to look for technology to automate some of the sales and marketing efforts?
Goodness, we might all have different responses. I would say marketing automation, which is a tool that enables you to, automate certain functions of your marketing, like emails to people. And so it lets you market while you sleep. So in our case, we use HubSpot for that, but there's a bunch of other tools out there like that. And, someone goes to the website and maybe they see a resource that we have, like a webinar, and they, sign up to watch the webinar. And then we're then able to enroll them automatically into a workflow that lets them, get that initial email with the link to the webinar, and then maybe 2 or 3 days later get another email with a question about how they like the webinar, and then a few days later another email with some other resources. And then the whole goal of these emails is they're all little mini funnels. We're trying to get people to work their way down through the sales funnel. So I would say that's probably, in my opinion, one of the first things that you should do. It's also the biggest one, though, so that's the tough part.
Yeah, I'd start small. What are the things that are taking time that, Chris, to your point earlier, that are not strategic? If you are constantly having to set up logins or do approvals, and you're doing approvals on things through email, what are some of those tasks that you can make automated or use a tool to make them faster, and get some efficiencies under your belt for those, and then look at what else you can tackle.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Chris, Mary Kate, and Annie, for all of that information. Obviously, this is a very hot topic with all the questions we got in, and I want to let people know that if your question wasn't answered during the webinar, we'll follow up with you afterwards and make sure you get the answer that you had a question for. We hope you found today's webinar helpful. This session will be available shortly to listen to again at the address on your screen, mcknightseniorliving.com/030921 webinar. We'd like to give special thanks to our speakers, Chris Harper, Mary Kate Spires, and Annie Harmon, for being with us today to share their insights. And thanks to our sponsor, Reputation.com. You can visit Reputation.com to learn more about the company. And thanks to everyone for tuning in and asking those great questions. This is Lois Bowers from McKnight Senior Living.